All right, as we mentioned at the top of the show tonight, we have major breaking news out of New York City, where, well, very abusively biased Judge Juan Merchan announced the sentencing of former President Donald J. Trump has been postponed until after the election in November. Now, Trump has been awaiting sentencing for months after getting convicted on these 34 counts of falsifying business records in what was one of the most clear, obvious witch hunts of all times, and featuring a conflicted judge, a jury pool drawn from one of the most liberal parts of the country, and, of course, a completely made-up crime using a novel legal theory specifically designed just to get Trump convicted. Anyway, here with more is Trump campaign senior legal advisor and spokesperson Alina Habba is with us. Alina, this case is probably the most egregious. In New York, this would be a misdemeanor case. The statute of limitations had run out. So they come up with this creative, novel idea that this very abusively biased judge goes along with, that somehow turns it into multiple felonies. They pack felony upon felony, and they bring this case to court under a theory that had never been used before. And here we are. And then we have a Supreme Court decision on immunity, which would mandate this judge vacate that verdict, considering evidence presented to that jury was from the time when Donald Trump was doing his official duties as president. But yet the judge is not going to consider that, or is he really considering it but doesn't want to tell us till after the election?
Your guess is as good as mine is, Sean. The reality of the situation is this case never should have been brought. Cy Vance passed on it. So did Alvin Bragg. But then the president decided to run for office. So that's why we are here. Judge Merchan's decision today, while it does show some deference, is still flawed, in my opinion, because of one thing. Like you said, the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in this country, a country based on the Constitution, separation of powers. We have that in place for a reason. They said that a president is immune, and that's all presidents, not just President Trump, from these types of political or any, frankly, prosecution, persecution, civilly or criminally. And the fact that he is kicking the can down the road, while it's appreciated because he doesn't want to appear to be doing what I and you have called election interference, which is what it is great. However, this case should be, frankly, dismissed. There was testimony on this case at the time of trial from people that were sitting in the Oval, from the president's team, evidence that should never have been brought in under this Supreme Court decision. So hitting the can down the road, I appreciate. But quite honestly, Sean, this should be vacated in its entirety.
It should be. I mean, was there not evidence presented? For example, Hope Hicks' testimony would be one example, but weren't there multiple examples of evidence presented to the jury that would fall under the Supreme Court decision on immunity that should not have been allowed into evidence, which would cause Merchan to vacate that verdict, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And not only were there multiple witnesses brought from the administration while he was in the office, but President Trump himself was sitting at the Oval in the Resolute desk while this was happening. The acts they claim, the payback by an attorney for an NDA, was during the time that President Trump was in the Oval. The entire case is flawed. It is past the statute of limitations. It was purely brought for political reasons. We know this. And when you bring DOJ officials onto the DA's office in a state court for felonies, it's a joke. There's so much wrong with this case. It should be completely admonished. The judge should be admonished, in my opinion, for not recusing, number one, for not dismissing, and for continuing to waste taxpayer dollars. This is a joke and an atrocity that the American people and the city of New York is seeing it. That's why they've got crime, and that's why people are fleeing.
No, I totally agree. All right, we had another court case this week, and I want to get into that. And this had to do with the D.C. case, and the special prosecutor in this case, who, by the way, the legitimacy of the appointment of this prosecutor is in question, as we saw down in Florida. The entire case was thrown out because by Judge Eileen Cannon. I think that would be applicable here. But the prosecutor refiles the case, and the judge this week then goes on to say, OK, well, we're not going to try the case before before the election because they don't have time with all the motions that'll be going forward. But they're going to allow this weaponized DOJ to put out prejudicial information against Donald Trump that will not be refuted. It will not be sworn testimony as a means, again, of impacting an election while the vote is going on. What happened to the 60, 90-day rule or practice of the DOJ in the past? Is that dead, gone, and buried?
It's unbelievable. And you're right, Jack Smith has been ridiculed and completely taken back from having any authority, as we know. Now, they've appealed that, but there's no decision on that. And as you said, this is the issue, Sean. We can say that trials will get kicked back, decisions on sentencing will get kicked back, but we have to hold accountable the people here that are influencing an election, because that is what this is. They want to bring up appeals, rehash old news that is frankly fake news. And we have to, as the American people, try and sift through that. That is election interference at its finest. It's improper, and we don't get a chance to go to trial and rebut it and show the American people what a joke this is. But it will come to November 5th. I think the American people are frankly getting it. They're sick of it, and they want to hear about policy. They don't want lawfare anymore. I truly believe that.
All right. We appreciate your time. Alina Habba, thank you as always. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.